100 years ago, Victor Hugo wrote, "Where the telescope ends, the microscope begins. But which of the two has the grander view?" Today, we still seek the answer. A Fine Science with Holly Preston.
Coming up on this program, putting together a jigsaw puzzle, cataloging 1 million bits and pieces of an archaeological dig from the Nipawin area. Later, we'll talk to the man in charge of looking after all those little pieces once they reach their final home in the Regina Museum of Natural History. Our third story moves us quickly from the past into the future, experimenting with super mileage vehicles at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon, vehicles that travel over 1,000 miles on 1 gallon of gasoline. But first, looking back. Archaeology, studying the remains of past cultures, is often the victim of major development. Hydroelectric projects are one of the bigger problems for archaeologists. The Aswan Dam on the Nile in Egypt represents one of the more obvious examples in the world, burying the remnants of an ancient civilization under hundreds of feet of water. Many artifacts were saved, however, by pre-planning. Such was also the case with the Saskatchewan Power Corporation's newest project near Nipawin. Archaeologists have known for a long time that early inhabitants of the province used the region for a gathering place. The Power Corporation and the Saskatchewan Research Council were able to work out a plan to save much of the history.
We were first involved in 1976. The Saskatchewan Power Corporation has been considering a hydroelectric dam at Nipawin for over 20 years, really. The same time as the Squaw Rapids Dam was built already, they were beginning consideration of a Nipawin installation. And that became more seriously considered in the mid-70s. In 1976, we did an initial survey, archaeological reconnaissance in the area, and Saskatchewan Power Corporation became even more serious about it, and we eventually decided to go ahead with the project, and we eventually were awarded the work in 1981. Most of our sites are prehistoric sites. By that we mean pre-European, and in Saskatchewan that simply means before AD 1690, AD 1700, the first European arrived on the scene, Henry Kelsey. And these prehistoric sites are old campsites where people camped when they came to the Saskatchewan River Valley seasonally. They generally came in the spring and the fall, apparently. And they left the bones of the animals that they had killed and butchered and eaten. They left the lost arrowheads. They lost their scrapers and knives. All of the camp debris. We find the hearths, pottery. We find a lot of pottery in the later periods. There are several processes that must be gone through with artifacts once they are taken out of the field, and I think many members of the public may not be aware of this. They see us excavating or working in the field, but they don't realize that there's a even lengthier, more tedious process in many ways involved once we get back to the office and lab. First, the artifacts have to be cleaned and they're washed. Following that, they're cataloged. Each of them is assigned a number and put into a computer. And following that, we can get the computer to do some counts, do some number crunching for us on the artifacts. Also, all of the bones have to be identified. We have to know what species they came from, whether bear or moose or buffalo, fish, birds. All of these have to be identified. When we've finished our work, they will be put on permanent repository in the Museum of Natural History in Regina. That in itself is a considerable storage problem. They do take up a lot of space, but that's their eventual home. Now, some of the more display-worthy artifacts, large reconstructed pots, unusual arrowheads, any other tools that are particularly display-worthy, we expect will go back to the local museum at Nipawin. As archaeologists, we're constantly aware that the public has a fascination with archaeology. Sometimes we who do archaeology wonder why this is so, because it is tedious and slow work. The public, lay people, have a fascination with the past. They're interested in the past. That's one aspect of it. But beyond that, this is the only way we can tell anything, know anything about the thousands of years that humans have occupied Saskatchewan and the Nipawin region. This goes back at least 8,000 years. And it's only the last 200 years or so of that we have any historic records for. So without this archaeological information, we simply have no record of human occupation of the Nipawin region.
We've got a super special this month at Cable Regina's National Video Store. Your choice of 4 movies and the use of a VCR for $12.95 a day. This offer is good 7 days a week. To reserve your VCR and choice of 4 movies, call 352-4949.
Visit Cable Regina's National Video Store, open until 10 every night and conveniently located at the corner of Park and Victoria.
When I told my mom and dad that the 3 of us were going to share an apartment, they didn't believe that we could afford it. But you know, we even had a little money left over. So we decided to give another kid a chance. Now we support a little girl in a developing country through Foster Parents Plan. We're glad we decided to share with Marcella.
Children are the future and must be our concern. Please help. Call Foster Parents Plan 1-800-268-7174.
Ethnology is defined as a science that deals with the division of mankind into races, their origin, distribution, relations, and characteristics. The Museum of Natural History in Regina has the most extensive collection of native ethnology in the province. What began in 1906 as a small collection of bird and animal specimens at the Dominion Fair in Halifax has expanded to include nearly 1 million objects today. The building that houses the displays was built in 1955.
The museum focuses on 2 major study areas, the natural history of Saskatchewan. By that we mean plant and animal life of this region, dating back to prehistoric times up until the present. We also focus on archaeology and ethnology. By this we mean those objects that are remaining from our human history, dating back surprisingly 10 to 12,000 years ago in this area up until the present.
There can be various things that will cause problems, and light, humidity, temperature, improper mounting techniques. There's a number of things that will cause damage to the objects, and the conservator's job is to try and prevent damage before it happens primarily, and then of course if something is damaged, to stabilize it so that the deterioration does not perpetuate, or to restore it to a condition of either use of a certain period. We try not to restore things to brand new or to falsify them. Anything we do is carefully documented so that we're not altering history. Actually, conservation sort of grew out of restoration. In Europe for centuries they've had restorers, and they began to realize that the same object is coming back again and again and again for treatment. And gradually they felt, well, rather than treating the problem, they should treat the cause, and conservation gradually grew out of that. This vest is a classic example of some of the things that can happen to a museum object, and a lot of them can't be repaired or restored. Here you see where insects have chewed the fringe, and the leather is gone, the beads are gone, and that could be stitched down and the ends of the threads stabilized so that no further loss or damage occurs. But we can't really replace that because that's falsifying the object. If we move up further, you can see there's more bead loss here from broken threads. And that too would have to be stitched down. And we don't usually replace beads unless it's really obvious, and for display purposes it would be beneficial or look nicer. We would replace the beads, but we would very carefully document, and we would mark them somehow so that we would know it wasn't part of the original design. Over here we have a metal ring tag with some information on it. And metal ring tags are very bad because if you get high humidity or any moisture forming, they'll start to rust and they'll cause staining on your object. And so we could remove that and just put a regular tag on, usually stitched on rather than just hanging on it's hanging on a loop here, and if it snags it could tear this out. So we usually stitch on a label with using an inert material. If we go higher up on the top of the vest, you can see where somebody has written the number onto it with probably a felt pencil. And of course that can't be removed. It's there forever. And it's just something that we try to avoid nowadays. And of course it's a common error in the past, but it's something that we hope doesn't occur anymore. And there's some beads missing on the shoulder here as well, and so the threads would just be tied off to prevent further loss. And as I mentioned, light causes a lot of problems, and if I turn this over, you can see how the back is the original dark color and the front is still faded out and doesn't have this original color anymore. And of course there's no way to restore that color to the object either. It's permanently faded. This is another example of insect damage. Before the native peoples had the glass beads, they used to flatten porcupine quills, dye them with natural dyes, and use those for decoration. And they've been attacked here by probably carpet beetles. They eat any of that type of material that they can get a hold of. This is another example of an object that was displayed for a long period of time under bright lights, and you can see this is the front side that was out exposed to the light, and this one has the back side that the light didn't reach. And up on the bottom edge you can see the green is still quite bright and the reds are still very bright, whereas the other side is faded out. Even the material is taken on a grayish tinge, and I imagine there's a certain amount of dust has settled into it as well. And these are the types of things that we're trying to educate the public and museums to, the fact that light will damage the materials and other things damage them, and that we should be lowering the light levels and not displaying things for long periods of time. This basket is an example of something that suffered from fluctuations in temperature and humidity. Most objects are comfortable at a certain temperature and relative humidity, and if that changes, then something in them will change. This particular basket has been subject to a very dry period of time, and you can see how the top corners have curled in and it's warped and distorted. This is an example of errors in mounting specimens. Somebody has simply glued tacks to the back of the objects and then stuck them into the wall, or in this case a big blob of a soft wax was stuck on. And you can see that in this case the wax has pulled the paint from the wall, which is rather fortunate. Usually what happens, it'll pull the surface from the artifact. And on the stone tool you can see as well there's big blobs of wax. It also has residue of glue all over it. And again, paint came from the wall. Of course, on a stone object, there's not too much danger of damaging it, but it's best to avoid that type of a mounting technique. This headdress has two types of damage. The same type of insects that like porcupine quills are also very fond of red wool. And you can see here where they've chewed the wool away on these quills here. And if you go down further, we have another example of human damage just caused by either hurrying or neglect. And this particular headdress was pinned flat to an exhibit case wall, and when they removed it they pulled all the pins out except they forgot one, and this quill pulled out and the wool has come off, and of course it's frayed. There had been insect damage prior to the pin damage, so the sinew has come out through the hole. And something like this, of course, is very difficult to repair. And a lot of the materials are irreplaceable. And how can you place a value on something that there is no other one of, or if it's destroyed, you haven't got another one. It's pretty well, invaluable.
Obviously, like every museum, we collect. But the museum also preserves what it collects. It studies what it collects. It then displays and interprets. And so these are the 5 basic purposes of the Museum of Natural History.
Now, enjoy delicious fried foods without the fried food calories. Introducing the revolutionary dry fry oven convection pan. A simple and powerful design giving crisp deep fried goodness with just a touch of oil. There's no water or extra fat. The secret is the unique airflow rim. Superheated air rushes up, circulating around the food, cooking it quickly and evenly. Automatically basting the food not in fattening grease, but on its own rich flavors and aromas. More flavor than you've ever tasted before. Less oil, fewer calories, less cholesterol. Look, this fried chicken is cooking because of the boiling oil. It's actually soaked up this much oil. This whole chicken is surrounded only by naturally flavored superheated air. Turn out crisp French fries or this fat-free fisherman's basket. The pan is so dry that you can even bake the fluffiest sponge cake right on the top of your stove, gas or electric. The superheated convection currents bake evenly top and bottom. Dry cooked sausages just like a barbecue, or even dry roast nuts, potatoes, or popcorn. Dry fry your veggies without boiling or steaming. This broccoli was boiled. Ours, cooked in the oven pan, is bursting with color and vitamins. There's even room for a roast. Best of all, the surface is Rock Coat, a new space-age surface, so tough it's guaranteed for 10 years. Even burnt milk peels off. The stovetop oven pan will cook food twice as fast with more flavor and no fat or water and almost no oil, or we'll give you back your money. Save time, money, calories, and cholesterol. Get the new dry fry oven convection pan together with this 32-page European cookbook at the introductory price of just $29.95. Act now.
Visa, MasterCard, COD charges. Call 569-1321 or save COD charges by sending $29.95 plus $4 postage and handling to Dry Fry Pan. P.O. Box 124, Regina, Saskatchewan. Call now. Operators are standing by. Remember, this offer can end without notice.
This spring past, the engineering students at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon unveiled their latest super mileage vehicle. Their challenge was to try to beat the world amateur fuel economy record of 2,650 miles per gallon set by the University of Saskatchewan team in 1984. The competition attracts teams from all across North America. Competitions were slated for Oakville, Ontario and Kalamazoo, Michigan. The University of Saskatchewan team to date has an enviable record, winning the event 3 of the last 6 years of competition. It even beat the professional teams the last 2 years running.
The super mileage cars bear little resemblance to anything on the road today. Built strictly for competition, they are little more than a housing for the 150-pound driver and the car's small engine. Rick Retzlaff is already an old hand at super mileage competitions. He holds the amateur world's record as driver of the university's winning car last year and will be at the controls putting the newest model through its paces this year.
We're usually driving an asphalt track, and it's usually about 2 miles around, and we take 5 laps of the track. So we're usually only traveling about 10 miles throughout the competition. A lot of people think that we actually drive 2,000 miles, you know, to get our 2,000 miles per gallon or whatever. But we don't do that. That would take days. Basically what you do is you get in and you go around about a 2-mile track, and you're usually traveling about 15 or 20 miles an hour throughout that. So it's not as if you're in any danger of crashing and burning. We use a momentum driving technique. And basically what that is you start the engine up, you accelerate up to about 25 miles an hour. and then you coast. Usually we can coast about a mile and a half with our cars, just from 20 miles an hour. Then you start the engine up and off you go again. So you're continually starting up the engine and coasting.
It's the car's special design that allows it to coast for more than a mile without power. The student designers concentrate on reducing the resistance, both through the wind and along the track, to get their cars to go further on less fuel. Every year, they must come up with a new design for the competition, and every year they find a way to improve their performance. Many of those improvements are a result of long hours of testing, using scale models and the university's massive wind tunnel. The wind tunnel is one of the largest such facilities in Canada and helps the students perfect the aerodynamics of their cars.
What happens is air moves by here at about 150 miles an hour through this section right here, and we take a model, something like this, a model of the car that we're thinking of building, and we mount it in the airstream and measure the forces on the model. And from those forces we can tell whether the car is very slippery or is, shaped like a brick, shaped like, a car, like a big car.
The wind tunnel helps the students determine the drag coefficient of their cars, a measurement that defines how close the vehicles come to aerodynamic perfection. But wind tunnel testing involves building countless scale models, often only to discover another design idea that doesn't work.
It's a lot of intuition when you get into wind tunnel testing. There's no set pattern. As you can imagine, there's no right way and there's no wrong way. There's just better ways and poorer ways. And so you try to think of, well, what might work? And then you try it, and usually it doesn't. But every so often you'll get that one thing that will work. This is basically a model of our new car, West Wind 9, and we had this in the wind tunnel probably for about 2 weeks straight, testing different configurations and different little add-ons. And that's really where the design starts, is getting a good shape for the aerodynamics.
Once they've defined the best shape for their car, the engineering students must decide how to construct it. This year, they abandoned the usual plastic and aluminum tubing and chose fiberglass to fashion their new car. Everything fits inside the fiberglass shell, even the wheels.
Basically, the big thing we've done this year is put the wheels on the inside of the car. If you notice, this vehicle here has no wheels showing. The wheels are actually inside right there. And that's a departure from what we've done before. And the other big thing that we've done is we've made a fiberglass monocoque car, is what it's called. It's made out of fiberglass, and the skin of the car, the shell, is actually the stressed member. It actually holds the car together. And it makes it lighter and more compact that way.
The new fiberglass car, known as West Wind 9, is only slightly lighter than its predecessors, weighing in at a total of 75 pounds. The fiberglass shell eliminates the need for an internal frame, although an aluminum truss was used to hold the rear wheel and support the engine. Having the wheels inside reduces the drag, an innovation made possible by switching to fiberglass construction. Rick drives the West Wind car, but everyone in the student team is involved in getting the vehicles ready for the competitions. Each team is allowed 2 entries in the annual Shell Fuelathon, and this year, the U of S will also take a modified version of last year's winner. Brant Remenda will drive the second car.
This is the cockpit, as it were, and the driver lays in here, feet first, his head up here with a crash helmet, plugs himself into here, which acts as the antenna for the radio that he wears in his helmet, so he can talk to the pit crew around the track.
By modifying their cars every year and trying new, sometimes radical designs, the U of S students have consistently improved their fuel economy records. In some recent events, their closest competitors were more than 2,000 miles per gallon behind them after the final tally.
I think that we have fairly good facilities. We have this wind tunnel that you see here, and we do a lot of our testing in that. We also have a great faculty advisor. I think that makes a big difference, Barry Hertz. And I think we just got a lot of spirit. I feel personally that this is probably as important or more important than any single class that I've taken. And it teaches you how to get something finished. It teaches you how to take something from a design and go through the process and get a finished product out the end. And they never teach you that very much, you know, a continual systems kind of a project. And it's taught me a lot in that respect.
Conditions are perfect for the day's events, and both the Phoenix 8 and the West Wind 9 perform as expected. They finish in first and second place, with the fiberglass West Wind car breaking the university's old world record and finishing with a whopping 2,980 miles per gallon.
We'll have something new up our sleeve. We see ways of improving on the West Wind design. The frontal area is somewhat larger than it needs to be, plus the engine we used was considerably heavier than it needed to be. So I would look for engine improvements and a smaller frontal area.
And so it's time to begin preparations for the next year. Back to the drawing board in the wind tunnel to create a car that will set another world record by going even further on a gallon of gas.
Professor Hertz has begun directing his energies in a slightly different direction. He says plans are materializing to use super mileage principles to develop a single passenger vehicle that could be licensed for everyday transportation. He says, "I think it will be possible to develop a prototype that would be capable of attaining about 300 miles per gallon at highway speeds." And that's our program. We hope you've enjoyed this look at Saskatchewan, past and present. I'm Holly Preston for A Fine Science.
This is CBC Television.